Good morning, folks. Good morning. I'm jazzed. I got up before the sunrise. I didn't get to sleep till after midnight last night, so it's not a good thing, but that's the way it is. I got a couple things done last night. It is 7:34 in the morning where I'm at, my winter place. Got some really good news. Braden of Langley Outdoor Academy, I guess, is an idol for it. He is so optimistic it makes me sick. I mean, he is always bubbly as can be, and he's always just positive. And I think it's uncanny because I don't see there's much optimism right now. But he did a report on a video, and he reported on the committee that the 20 got for the country. And this may be the salvation of the country. This may be the fulcrum for the turning around of this nation. But I'm not holding on to my breath because this Department of Defense is working against the people very, very fast and has not stopped. And we certainly haven't charged people with their crimes yet. So Congressman Dan Bishop, Representative Bishop out of North Carolina, where I learned how to talk when I was a little boy, long time ago. More than most of you have been around. That was more than 65 years ago. So, I mean, it was a long time ago. And when we went back home north at the time up to New Hampshire, my grandmother did not appreciate her children having a southern drawl. She was very upset by that. I don't have it anymore. Now I talk like a Midwesterner. I've been around the country and around the world so much, my accent has been neutralized. Dan Bishop is going to, they got to form a committee called Weaponization of Government Against the American People. Something like that. Weaponization of the government. And this is accurate. So I called Mr. Bishop's office and spoke with them briefly. They're polite down there. The young lady, the young girl who answered the phone had good manners. I appreciate that. That's one thing Southerners have over the Northerners, and I think that helps because a polite society is really good, but an armed society is polite. And so Braden over in Langley Academy, Langley Outdoor Academy, whatever the title is, brought this to the attention of everybody. He said it was good news. Well, it is really good news. And if we're going to hear something positive, it would come from him. And why would it come from him? Well, he's just kind of a bubbly sort. You know, you can pretend that he's a cute little blonde, blue-eyed, bubbly girl that doesn't stop giggling all the time because, I mean, he's got that effusiveness about him. You know, he's very optimistic. I'm hopeful, and as I told the North Carolina Representative's 9th District's office, I'd be willing to help him and talk about the truth that's in the Bible and what's going on with our country. In my recent show, I said even if we had 10,000 judges, that's what they called them in the Bible, basically. These were men moved by Creator God Yahweh to step in and rescue the Israelites, but it was just a temporary rescue. And I said, even if we had 10,000, we probably couldn't recover this country. And of course, what does the modern establishment, the deep state, refer to them as? Lone wolves. They want you to think they're lone terrorists. And what do they call us when they're really upset? Well, in their racism, they call us terrorists. Ask Dan Crenshaw, who should step out of office immediately. He's not fit to serve the country. Yes, he gave us good service. I recognize the warrior he is. And I realize that it's probably that training and that drive that he has, you know, like a pit bull, that he was able to become a SEAL and one of the major warriors of the country. But clearly, he's out for power, and he showed his true colors. He was calling the rest of them terrorists and wanting to go after them, just like the damn Democrats. And why? Because he wanted to become a chairman of a powerful committee, the committee that oversees DHS. I guess he wanted to become head of the secret police. The DHS needs to go away. They arrange the false flag shootings and stuff that people really get killed at, but they're doing it on purpose to get us legislation to disarm us. We mustn't allow that to happen. And if you're buying guns, praise Yahweh. Buy some more guns. Go get more ammo above all, because that's what they're going to go after right now. And the price on ammo is probably as cheap as it's ever going to be. How do I know that? Well, you know what a shot of whiskey is? A shot of whiskey came out of the Old West. That term was a colloquialism. And a man who wanted to get a drink, they used ammunition as money. And he'd walk up to the bar and take out a bullet, a round from his belt, put it on the counter, and say, "I'll have a shot of whiskey, bartender." And the 45 long Colt shot, was the same value as a shot of whiskey. So, with that in mind, my question to you, my fellow patriots, is ammunition overpriced or underpriced? I'm going to answer the question for you. What's a shot of whiskey at a bar cost today? Okay. All right. Probably $10 for a good shot of whiskey today. I mean, you might find some place that might have one for $5. It's kind of, the house brand. With a little water tossed in. And bullets don't cost $5 a piece today. They don't cost $10 a piece. Some do. I mean, there's some hunting ammunition that's like $385 for a box of 20. To get a good quality name brand ammo that you're going to use in safari in Africa, upon which your life depends, it's going to cost you about $35 a round. But to go out and get the most common ammunition today, 9mm, you're not even paying $1 a round. So the price of ammo's got a long ways to go to catch up with the price of alcohol. I told the Congressman's office that we out here in the Netherlands, we little people, regard January 6th as having been fomented by Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, and with the help of the FBI, planned at least a year in advance. And that the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, was the one that ordered the murder of Ashley Babbitt. Not by name, but she gave the order over the radio that somebody had to be sacrificed. Somebody had to die, just like she was the high priest back in Israel. Back when Jesus had to die. Go to my other channel if you want to get into the biblical stuff. I'll use the word Jesus here. That's not his real name, though. The real name is in my Bible, which you'll see the link down below. It's the only product I have, the only thing I represent. There are 5 different formats of the same Bible, which is the latest and greatest and best Bible in the world. Best Bible to date, I can promise you that, other than that was written in the original language. Where was I? Yes, and that lieutenant, who they've now made a captain, who they've never charged, lay in wait there for Ashley Babbitt. And your communist news, the Marxist news in this country will tell you he shot her in self-defense because she was crawling through the window. Bullshit. She was behind somebody that was in front of her against the window. And she stood up above them. She was so tall. And that officer, who had his gun drawn earlier, was waiting, lying in wait for Ashley Babbitt, or a target, saw her forehead and popped her. Murdered her on the order of the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. We want her charged. We want him charged. We want the FBI taken apart. However, we don't even have a military we can trust to go in there and take the FBI down. The FBI is an unconstitutional organization. It established the deep state during Hoover's reign through 8 different presidents. Hoover was beholden to the secret societies, which are all run out of a little office there in Rome, across from the Vatican. It's called your Black Pope. the Jesuit general. And if you're a member of a secret society, that's where your strings are being pulled from. And behind them is are other groups, another group. And their symbols are everywhere. And there's a book on the rulers of evil that has just come out, which I believe it's going to reveal everything. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I need you to buy my Bible. I need you to like my videos. I need you to share them. I need you to comment. If you have questions or if you have good information, I mean, people on Facebook, they get a hold of me after listening to my video and they give me more direction. The last one was wonderful. I said, and this is just my hunches and stuff from my research, that the Hebrew language originated in Polynesia. Yeah, the language that they developed came from an alphabet. What were they? The Phoenicians? Yeah. They sailed the oceans and they came out of Polynesia. And that was, I think that occurred after the end of the last Earth Age, a major disaster which took a lot of us out, and it was big. And by the way, that last Earth Age hit North America the hardest. Hit South America, North America quite hard, but North America, where we have the greatest electrical storms in the whole planet, we got hit the hardest. This was known as the wilderness during Jeremiah's times, during which he came here to the land promised. I believe this land was promised. Oh, in case you're wondering, there was gold mines and copper mines. Solomon mined gold over here and copper near the Great Lakes. And Jeremiah did come here, is what I believe. He went to Ireland first and came to the wilderness. His last part of his commission was to plant. He was supposed to tear it down because it wasn't right. He was supposed to preach against their stuff, and then he was supposed to plant. He had a big commission, a long commission. It's much more involved than what we realize. I need you to get a hold of the congressman from the 9th District of North Carolina, Mr. Bishop's office, and applaud him for his bravery. I didn't think we had anybody left in D.C. I didn't think we had anybody that wasn't bought off by the Chi-Coms. Almost all the others, including your governors, especially your Republicans, and I think even your Supreme Court guys, are bought off by the Chi-Coms. Yeah, that imbalanced trading gave them enough of that phony currency so they could do that. And you don't need to be the world's reserve currency anymore. You need to go back to constitutional money. That's what you need. And that's what you're going to get after they pull some more bullshit. You see, Trump is one of their men as far as I'm concerned. He was not that good of a president while he was president, but it sure was a hell of a lot better than the executioner we got today. I mean, my God, it's like Adolf Hitler rose up and is in D.C. now. The people that run his ass are nothing but Nazis. Putin is right when he says he wants to clean out the Nazis from the Ukraine. Well, boys and girls, it's your job, it's my job, it is our job to clean up the Nazis in Washington, D.C. and in our federal government. Even our own Department of Defense is using their advanced biological and electric weapons, psychotronic weapons. They're using everything against us. And we're losing probably on the order of, I'm going to take a guess, just a nice rounded guess, 10,000 people, Americans a day is what we are losing. But this media is so controlled and high tech is so controlled that we can't talk about it very much. Not much at all. Some of it we're talking about. I guess the rest of us, maybe we look enough like madmen that they let us on. And if you want to know where the facts are at, it's in the Bible, in the book of Revelations. 1/3 of us are going to be wiped out in the first go-round. And so look forward to that. Instead of being 7-8 billion people, we're going to be more like 5-6 billion. And then in the next go-around after that, another third die. Now, I don't know if that means we're down to 1/3 of that, meaning 2/3 are gone fully, or if we take 1/3 and then what's left of that, of those 2/3, we lose another 1/3 of that, in which case it's still almost half of the world's population. In case you're wondering, I offered my services to the representative and anybody else that he wanted to have listen to me. And so I told him the big story of, Dr. John Taylor Kent's the channel. Dr. Kent's show is my continuation of my psychology, talk show, advice show. And it focuses on politics, on philosophy, on psychology, which has been weaponized and has been used against this nation in a big way. Bad guy's name is Seligman. He's still alive. He's trying to pass himself off as the father of positive psychology. What's he really the father of? Learned helplessness. How to paralyze the public so they can't do jack shit. They can't defend themselves. They can't think right. And in case you're wondering, your leftist FBI was put to work by the bankers to separate us so we would fight among ourselves and not discover their evil asses and take them out. That's what they're worried about. That's why they want to nuke us. And we deserve it because according to the Bible, that's one of the possible futures for us. I look at the Bible as being a book of possible futures in there, but to be honest with you, I know you're going to say, what? This guy is a nut. He's off the wall. Okay, fine. I have flexibility in my thinking, even though I'm an old man. I'm not totally flexible. I am old as the hills. That's all there is to it. I've been working on this problem since I was a little boy. And I am going into my 8th decade of the problem when I asked my mother questions and she told me, stop trying to save the world. I was only 5 years old. Things didn't look right to me and I had questions and they couldn't answer them. And I had too many questions that didn't like that. They didn't like that at all. They took it as rebellion. Hell, I'm just a little boy trying to figure out why the world is so messed up. Didn't make much sense to me when I was 5 years old, 6, 7 years old. Didn't make much sense to me until I got over to Germany. Those were good people. They were better than we were. And here I am as a little boy there in Colorado watching television in black and white on a little screen. And they're running up the old videos of Adolf Hitler, this rabid dog, this madman, this insane lunatic. Just look at him. I mean, you could see the spit coming out of his mouth when he was talking. And he was scary. I was afraid. I remember some other playing in front of the mirror as a little boy. Yeah, when I was born, I was able to put myself in other people's shoes. You call it an empath. I say it's bad boundaries. It's the result of bad boundaries. It's not something to esteem. It's no fun. You get into other people's shit, and it's just like, it is nasty in there. I don't want to know this stuff. Let them be themselves. Leave me alone, man. And I had to go into some dark places to help rescue people and pull them out from where they were at. It was nasty, especially when I worked in the penitentiaries. But I did my job honestly, nobly. And I helped those inmates. They liked me, tried to help me back. They warned me about the evil the administration had planned for me. And they told me that there wasn't anything that they could do about it because they would stop it if they could. Yeah, they targeted me. We'll get into that at some point in time. Because I mean, everything's going to be revealed, so I'm going to tell my story as well here. I need you to comment. If you got questions, if you got historical things, and I do get some know-it-alls that try to tell me stuff that they don't really know about it. I had to get rid of one guy's comment because it was condescending as hell, and I didn't appreciate that, and I didn't really have the time to argue with him. I can't take the time to try to educate somebody. According to the Constitution, now you correct me if I'm wrong. And if you want to correct me, do me a favor and cite the article, the part of the Constitution, so I can look it up and read it myself. Because they lie about this Constitution. They lie all the time in this government. They tell you it's 3 co-equal branches of government. bullshit. You read the functions of the separation of powers that were granted, and you realize the most powerful body in the whole government was the House of Congress. The second most powerful was their buddies in the Senate, who represented the states, who authorized the Constitution, who no longer represent the states. The states no longer have representation. We don't have a republic anymore. Galco put that in a couple of my purchases to me, and I appreciate it. I have another copy that I like in some ways better because it details, it asterisks the original, it asterisks the 13th Amendment, because the original 13th Amendment is really the law of the land. You know, look at my shows on the strategic intervention to saving our nation of restoring the original 13th Amendment. You are not going to be able to get around it. I don't care what you say. You are definitely going to have to restore the original 13th Amendment and negate all subsequent amendments and start from the scratch. That's what our founders gave us until the War of 1812, and the Congress screwed up in 1813. And then we really screwed up in this last century. 1913, 1919, 1933, major screw-ups, major deviations that are unconstitutional. And the least powerful group, if you read this carefully, you realize it's the Supreme Court. They aren't co-equal. Those people who say co-equal are doing their best to brainwash you. They're CIA mockingbird jackasses. And when they say lifetime appointments of Supreme Court justices, that's no, they extrapolated that from here. It doesn't say lifetime. Go read it. And by the way, I was a behaviorist, trained as a behaviorist. I wasn't good at it, to be honest with you. It was very awkward, but I wasn't bad at it either. But the B in behavior in the Constitution is capitalized, and it's not the beginning of a sentence. And all of your current Supreme Court justices are guilty of some bad behavior, or at least there's people who are going to argue about it, you know. And by the way, they'll murder Supreme Court justices. They've murdered several during my lifetime. Matter of fact, the year I was born, they murdered the Supreme Court Justice Vincent. They murdered him so they could get through and force integration, force association, and screw our society up. Everything was fine at the turn of the century. Don't give me any bullshit about racism. The black family was probably better than the white family at the turn of the century. And then by the time Lyndon Baines Johnson came along after murdering his president to take office, he murdered a whole bunch of people to get up there into office. And his wife was a work of art, man. I think she owned stock in the helicopter company with Hughes. No, I can't remember what it was called, but she wanted to make money, all right, and they made a lot of helicopters for the Vietnam War. Johnson got through more legislation than any other president, but when they had used him up, they discarded him as well. You want to know who they are? There's a book out recently called The Rulers of Evil. It'll tell you something in there. You listen to my channel, it'll tell you something here. You go to the other channel, Awakening Israel, and as I told the congressman's office, that the supposition that we operate on is that America was founded by Israelites, Israelite descendants. And we are suffering from the biggest identity theft in history, in which the evil ones have taken over our nation and gave us the deep state, and also went after Germany. Why? Because German means genuine. And they were from the tribe of Judah. They were supposed to rule. And that's why the German people had to be destroyed. And Winston Churchill was not a good guy at all. He oversaw the sinking of Lusitania. Yeah. And he also was rewarded by plenty of booze. He spent the war, quite a bit of it, in a damn bomb shelter with his booze. And they also gave him young boys to play with. He was a pedo. When Barack Obama returned the bust of that bastard, to the Queen of England, I thought, oh, this is wonderful. you know. But it was a counterintelligence program, the purpose of which was to hide the fact that Barack Obama may well have been a subject of the British Crown. He had to distance himself from that. He couldn't let anybody find out his roots and his origins. Listen to my other show that I just put up. There have been reports that we are dealing with the grandchildren of Adolf Hitler. Real Nazis. I don't like the term Nazi. You watch the channel enough, I will take that apart and you will stop using it as well. It is the N-word, in my opinion. It is a racial, it is a slur coined after the war to derogatize, to treat those people derogatorily. They were not completely evil like they made them out to be. I found out that the videos of Adolf Hitler had been all speeded up. No wonder he sounded like he was rabid. Sounded like a madman. Scared the hell out of me. And I'm an army officer's son, and I got to go to Germany. Oh God, was I scared? I really was. And I get there. They were more intellectual, more rational, more honest than we were. And the countryside was a hell of a lot cleaner. They actually ratted themselves out. They were that noble and that honest. They were better than we were. And who would know better than a 7-year-old boy, 8-year-old, 9-year-old child? You know, with some innocence. I was so grateful for being over there, being reared over there. Heidelberg today is a pit, from what I understand. Last time I was there, it was a bustling city, and it was kind of nice, but it had already gone so libtard that wasn't much hope for it. I could sense it back then. I didn't want to live there again. I spent quite a bit of time in Heidelberg, and the alarms, the sirens would go off, and my daddy would leave, and I wouldn't see him. Sometimes he'd be back in 2 days, sometimes 6 weeks. We didn't know. We weren't told a thing. It was terror. I had night terrors at that time, and my dreams were recurrent, and that's already out there in another video. But if you want me to retell it, I will. I should break these videos down and make them shorter, but I like to go with a full hour. I had trouble doing that when I was on the radio, keeping it going for a full hour. Every time I prepared for a show, it was horrible. I had a bad time. I couldn't stand it. I don't think the audience understood it. And then I made the mistake of forgetting that I was doing the studio and I was busy doing laundry. I like doing laundry. I like clean clothes. It's a mindless experience. It's like meditation. It gives me a break from thinking. You know, you do it by rote. You have a way of doing it. You have a system of doing it. And it gives you it's nice to focus on that. And I like clean clothes at the end of it. I've been a bachelor most of my life. I tried marriage one time. Married definitely one of the devil's daughters. So I got real good up front experience with a real sociopath, a very pure sociopath. You would have thought that I would have been able to avoid that, but I'll tell you this, that sociopaths fool psychologists all the time. And we don't agree on what a sociopath is. We don't even agree upon the terms. So a lot of you run around calling them psychopaths. No, that's not a good term. Some talk about psychopathy. That's an old term that's archaic. It was not very well developed as a term by the guy that developed the whatever it was scale of psychopathy. Harris, I want to say, or whatever it was. I don't remember names very well. I never was good remembering names even when I was younger. Bad trait for a psychologist. We used to run only 4% sociopathic. Today, I think we're running, and that was 1 out of every 25 of us was a sociopath. Today, I think we're running more than 7. 1 out of every 7, at least. And that's because we are a mixed society. That's what occurs when you go with diversity. Diversity does not strengthen your ass. Diversity weakens your ass. And if you want a good example, turn to Japan. They won't allow a lot of people in their country. They certainly don't want my white ass in there settling down. And they're happy with who they are. And they want to keep it the way it is. What's their rate of sociopathy? 1.7%. Versus 4% in our better days when we were healthier before the Democrats turned this into a shithole, as Donald Trump would say. And that's what they did. That's what they continue to do by bringing in all these mixtures in. And you may think, well, that's being racist. No, it's good common sense. You want to survive. You want people that are intelligent. You want people that are in your country that can support themselves and they can read and write. They can understand the signs that are out there and they can think with good common sense and they understand the ways of the people. You know, we were told all the time, learn the ways of the people. Well, I've been around the country and I've had to learn the ways of the people, and it is a very diverse country. And I've learned from every one of them, and I'm glad for what I had. But I got to tell you, we need, my buddy says, at least a 10-year moratorium on all immigration. At this point, I would say we need 2 decades, 20 years minimum, so we can sort out what's in here. And we need to make it a felony with mandatory expulsion and banishment from the country if you're in here illegally. And we need to bill the country from which they come for the services their people have stolen from us. Yeah, we can balance our deficits quite a bit by doing that. We do not need to be the world's reserve currency because it's not our currency. It's not our money. It even says that on there. It belongs to the Federal Reserve System owned by the Rothschilds. And the other evil bastards that they have that are dominating this world and running it and have done this to us today. They are going to nuke us if they can get away with it. Don't kid me. And they also use bioweapons on us right now in the public at large, and they use electronic weapons too. You got to look into that stuff. Do your own research. I found out it was from the bankers. A buddy of mine told me about it, and I finally told him, no, my grandmother told me about it. But she wouldn't tell me about it. She mentioned it clearly to me. And I didn't know what the hell she was talking about. I was about 13 or 14 years old. She was in the kitchen, and she muttered something about us, the bankers. And my mom was in the kitchen with us. Nice big kitchen. Grandma's custards. I miss her. I miss those. Whew. But she's been gone a while. My grandmother was college educated. She was a school teacher, and she ended up working in the bombs munitions factory. And she told me that the 7th plank of the New Deal was the law of the land for 7 years until the Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional. How fair is that people have to suffer for 7 years before there's any justice? They set that thing up to do that to us. And they murder Supreme Court justices. They even murdered the Supreme Court justice the year I was born so they could take us over. And who was one of the biggest cover-ups in the world? Why, the Warren Commission on the cover-up of the Kennedy assassination. Earl Warren was head of the communist cell on the East Coast. He ordered a lot of bad stuff to happen. Folks, we've been infiltrated and taken over by a very evil group. Have fun sorting them out. Even if we had 10,000 judges or lone wolves, we couldn't take care of this. And it wouldn't be the proper thing to do. We have rebelled against Yahweh. We've rebelled against the laws of nature, against God's laws, the 10 Commandments, which we agreed to. And by the way, all of our founding fathers knew who they were pretty much. I mean, some of them just didn't want to believe in Yahweh. Didn't want to believe in that there was a God. They were a bit agnostic, deistic, theistic. You can criticize them any way they want, but they read their Bibles, even though they might not have believed in it. Ask Thomas Paine, common sense. He didn't want to believe in a God for anything. They knew who we were. And when you read the obituary of George Washington, it begins, a great man in Israel has died. George Washington was murdered. I'm reporting that now, so if you're out there, law enforcement, yeah. And there was another president murdered on the 4th of July. Maybe more than one. These people have been doing their evil shit here for a long time in secret. And there's going to be a lot of work in the future for historians to write the proper research and write the proper history of this nation and the world. Believe me, there's going to be a lot of work. And as far as these police officers we have that damage other people, fire them. I mean, quite simply, why should a city, a municipality pay millions of dollars out? Why should their insurance be tapped when a guy damages somebody, commits a crime under the color of law? No, just fire him. You know, there's plenty of good men to take the job. Okay, good women. And as far as Congress goes, we've been saying for decades now, if you took out the phone book, opened it up, and picked a name at random, you'd get a better representative. And in my opinion, since all spending bills are required to originate in the Congress, which isn't what happened with this $1.7 billion bill to trash the currency and trash the economy and destroy our country. That's what that bill's purpose was. And that's what your new Speaker of the House of the beast system gave you. That warmonger who wants to go to war with Ukraine wants to get us nuked. And you chose him? Oh, man. I really want those 10,000 lone wolves. Yeah, I really do. I'm so angry about this. But as I said, it's not the way to go. We have to sit on our asses, read our Bibles, and abide by the 10 Commandments, and pray and seek Yahweh's will all the time. Yahweh's will for our lives. That's how you work out your salvation. You do His will. And if you don't believe me, then turn to the New Testament and read what His son Yeshua, the Messiah, it was wrongly misinterpreted Jesus about the time of the creation of the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, and it was taken out of the Bible. The word for God's proper name, Yahweh, was taken out of the Bible about 275 BC when Ptolemy II in Alexandria, Egypt, was producing the Greek Bible. I think he was a bad guy. I think he did that to purposely screw us up. And we just recently got a good proper name version of the Bible, of the King James Bible. Go buy one of my Bibles. You want me to read into your life? Well, don't bother me until you read the Bible. I do not consider myself educated, even with 5 formal degrees, until I sat down and read the Bible about 3 times. It took me a long time. I had had 2 strokes. I was totally humbled. Hell, my short-term working memory was shot. It was bad. And not only that, I lost some of the advanced dancing skills I had. Ah, man, I loved dancing, and I hated losing that. But, and my mathematics skills, I used to do calculus in my head. I'd do, advanced stats on the fly. It was part of the conversation as far as I was concerned. I did not realize how greatly Yahweh had blessed me, how wonderfully He had made me until He humbled me. And I'm sitting in my favorite restaurant. All I could afford was an a la carte item and to stuff up on chips, and water. I think they might have given me tea back then for $3.49. And I sat there with a paper and pencil, and I couldn't calculate a tip for 20 minutes. I knew I was in trouble. I didn't know that I had suffered 2 strokes for quite a while. And when I realized that I wasn't safe to conduct therapy, I decided I had to retire my license. I've recovered quite a bit since then, but I am not strong enough that I want to defend my practice because these stupid assholes on the board don't understand psychology. Don't get me wrong, they're intelligent, but they've all been sidelined. They've all been brainwashed and controlled from the top down. And what does the top tell them to do? Refer to a medical doctor, for medicine, for treatment. And what are those treatments? They're actually poisons. They actually shorten somebody's lives. They destroy our organs. They destroy the nervous system. Neuroleptics mean that they preen the hairs that are on the neurons. Those fine little hairs that do all the work, all the connections are preened off. So instead of looking like a beautiful tree of life, it looks like a fucking sewer pipe, just straight. And then you lose brain mass. They do that to you on purpose. And those practices come out of ancient Khazaria, which is where the Ukraine is. And if you don't understand what's going on in the Ukraine and you want to know world history in one picture, go to my blog, givingpsychologyaway.com, and you'll see the page, the home page for the blog. At the very bottom, the last tab, world history in one picture. Look at that. Study that. These evil ones rule us with their symbols, and they make their presence known and communicate to each other through their symbols. It is a giant octopus of a network across the whole face of the earth. One world government's been here for a while, boys and girls. Don't talk about the New World Order as if they're going to bring it. It is here. They're just going to tighten the noose. They're going to turn we are creating our own digital electronic prisons, penitentiaries. How do we do that? I'm recording on my electronic leash. It's a Samsung. I'm not real happy with it, Samsung. I want a proper physical input for headphones and microphone. I want a hardwired input with good filters on it, like the last phones you made. But you had to follow Apple, and Apple is evil. So you have discriminated against people with fragile hearing, marginal hearing, and you discriminate against people in general, because even your own operators at your own businesses will tell you that they miss having a hardwired headset. Even they hear better with it. If some attorney out there wants to represent me, I'd like to sue both Samsung and Apple and require them to put headphone jacks with good digital audio converters, filters in them, in the top of the line product. And that would be so they would stop discriminating against people who are disabled. It would be a massive Title, whatever the hell it is, Title I, Title VII, whatever it is, it would be an ADA action. And I want to get a damn good cell phone for a change. I won't be buying another one. I've had problems with the cell phone for 10 months. Finally, I seem to have one that works right. I spent a hell of a lot of money on this with T-Mobile, and they couldn't take care of it, and I spent hours, days, it probably adds up to weeks. I must have called them 30 times. And this is my fourth copy of an S22 Ultra with 512 gigabytes of RAM. They don't do a very good job with these phones, in my opinion. And they keep us addicted, and these electronic leashes are all going central. Everything goes into the beast system, so you and I feed the beast. I do not like doing that, but I got to get my word out. You want to know what the beast system is? I'm going to tell you. It's in the book of Daniel in the Bible, and it's completed in the book of 2 Esdras in the Apocrypha. You want to do me a favor? First, if you want to ever contact me for any help, my requirement is you buy one of my Bibles. I don't get much money off it. I'm not here to make money, and neither is the publisher, because those things are about half the price of the competitors. They're half what they should be. They are subject to change at any time, and they will be going up. I can assure you of that. Everything's going up. With this $1.7 trillion increase in the money supply, your dollar is going to lose half of its purchasing power. So whatever you're buying today will be twice as much because of that phony money out there. And you don't need a reserve currency. You don't need to be the reserve currency and beat up people around the world with it. Terrorize other countries. That's what we've been doing. I mean, all you need is gold and silver, just like the Constitution says. That's the only constitutional currency, and that's what the Bible defines as money. Gold and silver of a certain purity and a certain weight. It has a tangible aspect to it. It cannot be counterfeited, not very easily anyway. And it certainly can't be watered down, and you can't be robbed of the value that you've earned by your United States Congress, the biggest bunch of thieves on the planet. All inflation is theft. And in case you're wondering who's stealing from you, 535 U.S. congressmen and women and 100 senators, and they're just super congressmen and women. They're not even state senators. The state governments are no longer represented. And we can change this whole thing. You can use my 13th Amendment, the strategic intervention, the original 13th Amendment strategic intervention, to do a great reset. Klaus Anal Schwab can get a Schwab up as you know what. His last name should be Rothschild. He's a Rothschild grandson. In case you're wondering, you've had Rothschilds in the office of the United States presidency, and they weren't very good presidents, in my opinion. But my opinion only has limited worth. I wasn't alive at the time you got your first Jewish president, Abraham Lincoln, whose father was A. Springs of Alabama. Springs is short for Springsteen. Springsteen, I guess Lincoln took his mother's maiden name. Springsteen actually revealed that Abraham Lincoln was his son in his will when he left his property, his land, to Abraham Lincoln. That's how we know. And we also know, and you can find it out, if you search it out on the web, you will find out that Abraham Lincoln's father was the offspring of a Rothschild with a maid. For some reason, the Rothschilds and their maids seem to really get along real good. Probably get along better than they do with their wives. And so, and I don't know about Hitler, if he's part of the Rothschilds or not. If you know that, put it down in the comments for me. I love learning, man. So educate me. Okay, so we have good news. A committee, and I hate committees in many ways. Do not expect me to do well with committees. That stuff rankles the hell out of me. You know, I'd rather just go in with a sword and cut the damn heads off and dominate. I think Genghis Khan had it right. And by the way, the biggest slaughter in the history of the world, 700 AD. I think that was the year. A friend of mine who was Mongolian in college, he was a history buff, and he was really a quiet guy. Real sweetheart. Very nice guy, actually. He didn't look nice. He was big and husky, and he looked like he could take you apart. Turned out he was just a really good guy, though. And he bragged about how, Genghis Khan went through Baghdad or Damascus and butchered the people. 7 days of kind of an orgy of killing, with the horsemen beheaded people, and they stacked up the skulls outside of the city. And I think it was like 12 million, 7 million, or 12 million. Don't hold me to it. Go look that stuff up. I've got information overload. I suffer from information overload. And so these things do get jumbled up at times, and I don't keep them straight. And I don't talk enough about this stuff. I don't use the facts. And that's one of the good things about this show for me, is that I get to exercise some. And some of the things that I say, it's like, I don't know where that came from, or I didn't know I knew that. I hadn't mentioned that in ages. We are in trouble, and we earned it, and we deserve it. We have become Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0, and nuclear destruction is in the cards for us. It is a possible future for us, and we may get it. And if we're going to get it, we're probably going to get it now. You got a jackass in office, and even President Barack Obama warned us, do not underestimate Joe's ability to mess things up. I'm not using the same word Barack used. And he's exquisite at messing things up. Everything he touches turns to crap. It's really bad. And you people out there, you democrats, think you did a good thing, and it doesn't matter how your boy got in office as long as he's in there. Well, I'll tell you this. You all accused Trump of being a Russian agent. They were working with Russia. That was the problem. They were selling the Russians our uranium. She never was held to task for that traitor. The Wicked Witch of the West. I guess she deserves that crowning title more than, well, who were the Wicked Witches of the West? My mother was the Wicked Witch of Wasilla, according to my father. Oh, that upset her terribly, but she was too tough on him and too tough on me. And she admitted that later in life, that she had been too tough on him. Well, they never did admit how tough they were on me. She took all of her wrath out on me. Everybody else in the family was happy with that. As long as they were left alone, they didn't care what happened to me. I have wounds from that to this day. And I know that the end of life for me is going to be real painful because of what happened to me when I was only 7 years old. They should have got me medical attention. And my dad accused me of having a bad attitude because I wouldn't sit up straight. I couldn't sit up straight. Mom almost broke my back. And my sister got in there and wailed on it with her elbow. And the pain was horrible as she screamed at me. She was extremely abusive, is abusive to this day. And you may think, my God, he hates women. Listen to him talk about his family. I bring this up to you today for a reason. So that you don't go through this, and so that young boys in this country stop going through bullshit like that. I listen to these adult men. You guys are adults in your middle age at this point, and you're feminized. I mean, you are embarrassments. I listen to the guys in the outdoor channels. Man, they might as well be flipping their wrists around and doing all kinds of stuff because they're so big on their feelings and such pansies, and they express themselves so emotional, so weird. Hell, when I was a man, we didn't know what emotions were. We didn't know what our emotions were. It was to our detriment because we couldn't identify them. We couldn't put proper adjectives on women. They could identify every bit of it. But we were hobbled in that sense. But anyway, if you are a father and you're allowing the mother of your child to inflict corporal punishment in real weird ways, or to effeminize that boy, or to even attack him because he looks like you and they want to go after you, you need to stop it and stop that stuff. And I realize you don't have the upper hand, that you're not going to be believed by the police and by the courts. But I think if you call the police and file the report first, you will be believed, and it will open up a can of worms. But if that woman is that abusive, you don't want her scarring up your children. And by the way, the children will turn out just fine if you rear them by yourself. We have the studies on that. We have good data on that. We don't have the studies on the girls, but I can assure you that if we had the studies on the girls, it would be even worse. You see, 70% of all boys reared by mother alone end up going to jail, prison, end up criminals. Only 6% of boys reared alone by father alone end up going to jail. So it's in the best interest of the child that he be with his father. And it's in the best interest of society that we do that as well, because we don't have to have all these damn prisons, and we don't have to have the highest per capita, the most people in prison in the whole world. That's your freedom for you. They invented and created things and made them crimes that don't hold water. So you want to stop the violence against women and children, it's really easy. Stop the violence against men. Step in and do not let little girls beat on boys, because she can't hurt you, she's just a girl. Bullshit. Don't allow that stuff to happen. And when I see mothers hold their older sons back and effeminate them by not allowing them to defend themselves, which is a God-given natural right, it's a problem. I don't want him to hurt his little brothers. Shit, they're going to hurt him. At the rate they're going and the way you're standing by and letting it happen, they're going to kick his ass. They're going to hurt him. Oh, he might hurt them. I said, no. You want his help in taking care of them. You have to give him some authority. You have to let him at least let him defend himself. He's not going to hurt them. You women are ruling the roost. You're dominating. You want to be dominant. You don't want equality at all. And this crap about how you've got to have more of a reward in the courts and you don't have to be held to standards for the crimes you've committed. You know, when I was a little boy in Leavenworth, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, it came to our attention about the criminal sentences for women being about 1/3 when they were sentenced of what they were given to men. So the average man was getting 20 years on a murder sentence if he wasn't put to death. And the average woman was getting away with 7 years. Yes, ladies, you've been getting away with murder. And it has to end. Why? Because you've destroyed your country. You've effeminized it. You aren't producing warriors. And you're going to need warriors. And you're going to find out in short order. Because this nation's marked for destruction. It has been judged by Yahweh, Creator, Father. We could get nuked. Those jackasses in D.C., those Nazis in Washington, D.C., and I use functional analysis. I look at their behavior, how they're functioning. I don't look at how they're labeled by the media that coddles them and protects them, or by the FBI that makes sure that they're safe to do their mischievousness. Your Representative Dan Crenshaw's a frickin' Nazi. He needs to step out of Congress. He needs to be run out. If we had an ethical Congress like when I was growing up in the 50s and 60s, they'd be run out. They'd have to go home. They'd be resigning. We have no standards today. And you women don't respect men. And you won't consult us even. By God, why can't we get men's abortion rights? It's not your body, it's half our body too. As I recall from biology, there's one cell from your body and one cell from my body. So it's a 50-50 deal. It's not your body. And by the way, it ain't ours anymore. Because at the moment those two cells come together is when the spark of light, the soul, is fused into that body. Creator Father God does that. The bigger the spark that comes off, the bigger, the greater that soul is. It's the child's body from that point on. Sorry, ladies, you can't have it all. You can't be murdering our children. Men's rights for abortion are really simple. It should be the law of the land. Now, I'll go for it happening in one state and trying it out there first, because I believe real diversity when it comes to that stuff. Because then we can at least measure things. We can study them. We can see the results and then make better decisions over time and come up with better guidelines, better laws, better rules. But I think that every man, it should be written law in the nation. Two things at this point. The first is that there be paternity tests on all children, including those born to families, to married couples. By law, all of them. Why? Because 20% at the least are not ours. The women lie. They cheat. They steal. They rob. They hurt us in the courts because of this no-fault divorce. Don't give a woman a state marriage license. Give her a biblical marriage license and marry her before God. And divorce her before God and keep the state out of it. But when a woman's pregnant and wants to get an abortion, she should be required to produce written proof that the father has been notified. And the telltale sign on that is we'll do a DNA test on the tissue of the fetus, as you want to call it, to justify your damn murder They're taking of innocent blood. Yahweh, Creator Father God, abhors that. And for every abortion you've committed, you're going to get one illegal alien that you have to bear the burden of. I want to see that women be held to task. That way the fathers will be identified. And if they fail to consult the father, then I think they're guilty of a crime. A crime against that man and against that child and against the nation, because we need good, healthy babies and good people. You have to have that to have a future. There's no greater economic stimulus than children. That's the number one. That's Yahweh Creator Father's economic stimulus program. That motivates everything. Boy, God, does that motivate a man? Does that motivate a woman? It motivates parents. And if a woman can't identify the man, well, states can deal with that the way they want. Maybe they should claim you're going to raise the child and we're going to adopt the child out. And we're going to do a paternity test and find out who the father is. We need for a woman to be required to go before the court, the family court. Let's make it a construction court instead of destroying family courts. That's what they all are, is family destruction courts. Let's have women walk in and prove to a judge that she's got the proper consent, and give the opportunity to the fathers to walk in there as well and to tell the judge, Your Honor, I want my child. Do not allow this woman to kill my child. I will take the child. We men don't have a choice, you see. We can only have children with the help of a woman. And yes, it's going to be in her body. We could do some things for that. These single women that are running around that don't have medical insurance or medical care, a nice, noble man who wants his child could step up and say, Your Honor, I don't want child support. And I will pay the medical bills, or I will help with the medical bills. There has to be some way to take care of this so that we men can have our children and we men can rescue our children. We are far better parents than you women are. And we're far more important in parenting than you are. You don't want crime? Then let us father our children instead of using this as weapons against us. I've gone long. I've covered all kinds of stuff. It's going to be a generic Dr. Kent show today. This is number 24. Or is it 23? I'm going to give it number 24. I think I used 23 about midnight last night. And I got my other show to do. I've got to move along. I got to get some food in me. I'm exercising today. Yes, I pump iron. I used to run. The doctor tells me I can do it, but personal trainer tells me not to do it. Other friends tell me not to do it. Man, I'm getting kind of old for that. It's hard on the knees. I understand that. It's hard on my lower back. I was in a bad accident and got screwed over pretty badly on that whole deal. But let me not complain about that right now. I've got work to do on that still. I need your help. Buy my Bibles. If you want to start a prison ministry, do it with my Bibles. If you want to see the Apocrypha and be a part of the production of the Apocrypha, and you've got some money and you want to invest it, give me a call. Let me know. I'll introduce you to the publisher, and we will make a deal. I think that we should make a deal. I need 5,000, a commitment to 5,000 copies, and then we can do the production that I want, which is going to be a big production. I don't want to do just print on demand. I want to produce the best Bible in the world, and we can keep making this thing better. I want to get the apocryphal books in there. If you want to know the critical books in there, the critical things in the Apocrypha, number one is the eagle is roasted, burned from one end to the other end in the Bible. It is the final beast in the beast system. Go read it. Maybe you can explain it to me. We have the first Christmas Day that's in the apocryphal books, the 14 books. We also have the order for those who die and don't make it, the condemned. There's 7 bullet points, basically, as I recall, in a chapter later. We have the order for those who make it and are saved, and there's 7 bullet points that specify their rewards right there. We also have the sedition that's been committed in this country recently against the previous president. That is named by word in the old version of the Apocrypha. There is a modern English version of the Apocrypha, but it's not in the spirit. They add and remove verses from that Bible in a horrible way. Yes, it's modern English, but it doesn't have the spirit, and they add and subtract from it, so it's not right. I want a proper version. I want a real good version, and it's going to be harder than what the publisher thinks. There's more in the Apocrypha. Oh, by the way, there's no marriage license in the Bible. The Marriage Act was basically sex. That was it. However, in the apocryphal books, for you ladies who want marriage licenses, we have the first marriage contract. It's a story that's got some dynamism to it. You ought to read it. It's a short one. All right. You take care. May Yahweh bless our republic. May He restore our republic again. May we have Pax Americana upon the earth for a millennium. That, according to some of my brothers, is in the Bible. I'm not pulling for it, but could you imagine what it would be like? Now, I've had visions to support it, though. Comments, suggestions, clarifications, questions, put them down below. I'll do my best to keep up. You're on my main channel, Dr. John Taylor Kent. This is the Dr. Kent Show, number 24.